if just in the process of enculturation, the process of being brought up, somehow getting convinced that you're unworthy as a habit of thought that's built into a belief. And then as I think about that, and I think I can see rationally, okay, that's irrational, and I can think, all right, I'm
and
worthy.
Yet real, and yet real.
Yeah, powerfully. And
well, that's why it helps to have another point of view spoken to you often enough that you can begin to hear it. And that's why we appeal to your logic. It's why we start with a law base that has no flaws in it. Because once you start with something that has no flaws, then you can build upon it in a way that makes sense to you. In other words, you say, even though it's an irrational thought, and we say, really not an irrational thought from outside the vortex, if you are surrounded by or even raised by one person who is outside the vortex, then as they are outside the vortex and spewing information to you, there's a high probability that you will begin to replicate that outside the vortex perspective of yourself. And this bringing it back into alignment by starting with a premise that is not flawed, that is what we are always about in the teaching that we offer, is if we can convince you that the negative emotion that you feel, that you use the label unworthiness, if we can convince you that the only reason that feeling in you exists is because you have found a thought that is bogus in relationship to the way the source feels about you. You might have rendezvoused with your mother perfectly. She might have convinced you that you were unworthy. But when she convinced you, when she got you to vibrate like she was vibrating, because she'd been taught by her mother, had been taught by her mother, as you joined that chain of pain, as you held to that concept which seemed rational by the standards that were surrounding you, the negative emotion exists within you because that thought doesn't match that thought. That thought, that painful thought, is a painful thought because the source within you thinks a thought entirely differently from that. You see. So Jerry and Esther bought a chandelier for their house that they are remodeling. And it just looked off to both of them. Esther looked up at it and said, "Is that thing hanging funny?" And Jerry said, "It is." And it didn't matter what angle they looked at it, they could tell it was off. So they walked up the stairs where they could see a more level eye view of it, and they could see that it was really tilting forward and this way. And yet it had been constructed by the people who took it out of the packaging according to the directions, but it was just hanging funny. And Esther kept saying, it's starting right at the top. It's off right at the top. And they were trying to square it down at the bottom. They were trying to put an extra little piece of wire to hold this and a little piece of wire to hold that. And they sort of got it kind of looking better. But then Esther said, because there was someone there with a very tall ladder, measure the distance between the rings that were supporting the next layer and the next layer. And there was 21 inches from that ring to that ring, and 23 inches from that ring to that ring, and 22 inches between that ring and that ring. And Esther said, there's no possible way for this to ever hang right because it was created out of balance. We can, excuse the terminology, jerry-rig this all we want, and it will never be right because it is flawed at its conception, you see. And so the feeling of unworthiness is flawed at its very basis because the source within you so knows your value, and when someone convinces you otherwise, you feel the bogus nature of that. So what goes wrong, and we know what you're getting at, the thing that is really, if you want to call something off or something that would be a whole lot better, would be if there could be a policeman running around just making sure that mothers teach you what your inner being knows. And that's what religion tries to do. Religion tries to teach you what God knows. But it has to be an inside job. And that's what makes it so beautiful when you find it, you see. When you realize that you're born with this sensitivity to the vibrational nature of you, and that the two vibrational vantage points are playing off of one another all the time, and that every emotion you feel is the indicator of how well it's playing, and that when you're in alignment you feel fabulous, and when you're out of alignment you feel less good, you see. And once you get hold of that, and it doesn't matter if someone teaches it to you when you're 5, and that's what Esther wants for her grandchildren. She wants them to know it right now. She wants them to know it so powerfully that they will never forget it. But she can't teach it to them enough that they will never forget it. They're going to forget it. They're going to forget it for a while, and they're going to experience the discord of being out of whack with who they really are. And in that discord, they're going to, like you, develop a desire to be back into alignment with who they are that will bring them to a higher, happier place than they would have ever achieved if they didn't get out of alignment to begin with. And that's what you counted on. You said, that's really worth it. But you only know it's worth it when you're in the vortex. When you're not in the vortex, it never ever looks like it's worth it.
One last question. How, if I have a core belief of unworthiness,
those words don't go together, because your core belief is what your source knows. Your core belief. Unworthiness is off from core belief, and that's why it feels so off. So every time you feel negative emotion, you could accurately say, I've picked up a belief on my physical trail that is distorted from my core belief.
Right.
The only time you know that you have found a core belief is when you're joyful. Those are core beliefs.
So, if I picked up a habit of thought, a belief of unworthiness, how do I avoid splitting my energy with a contradictory habit of thought that I am worthy? For example, if I just say, I am worthy, like almost like an affirmation, then I feel like that would...
Well, what we're encouraging you to do 100% of your affirming from inside the vortex. Because we were talking about that earlier. When you're outside the vortex not feeling good and you try to affirm, all it does is dig a deeper hole. It just makes it worse. So you're getting the cart before the horse. You're going about it in a backwards way. We would encourage you to care how you feel, and then when you feel a little improvement, affirm that. And then care how you feel, and when you feel a little relief, then affirm that. But no one ever really helps themselves when they feel off, or when they feel odd, or when they feel out of the vortex, or when they feel ornery, and then they say, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Because all they're doing is amplifying the fact that they're not doing it.
I got
helpful?
It. Very helpful. Thank you very much. And thank you to Esther and Jerry.
Yes, indeed. Deep questions, important conversation. What is the time?
Must be getting very close.
What is the time on the recording?
We've done 53 minutes and 21 seconds.
It's
3:33? Oh, you want the real time? 3:43. We have 2 minutes.
Well, we've used all of our time trying to figure out how much time we have.
Then we have 2 more minutes.
We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. We have taken thought beyond that which it has been before. This has been a leading edge discussion, and true to our promise to you, it has been a discussion about the vortex from beginning to end. In other words, you are understanding who you are from an inside the vortex perspective. And we know that you stand, as we do, in appreciation of everyone who has brought the valuable questioning forward. Our encouragement to you, because we have another full day tomorrow, and we can feel from what's sort of bubbling within you today that tomorrow will be even more leading edge than today. So your homework tonight is to think nothing about the seminar tomorrow. In other words, don't try to guide it. Instead, just anticipate how good it will feel as it unfolds. It is our expectation that tomorrow some of the things that we've stirred up today will come into complete alignment in a really satisfying way. So just be easy about all of this and have as much fun tonight as you can possibly find. There is great love here for you, and as always we remain in the vortex.
Thanks, guys. Don't forget to change your clock some way, direct forward or backward, and we'll be here at 9:45 tomorrow morning. See you then.